One of the biggest moments from E3 this past year was when Phil Spencer walked out on stage and announced the 4 new studios they acquired and the brand new studio they were building from the ground up. And in interviews afterwards, whether it was with Jeff Gertzman from Giant Bomb or other places, he reiterated the fact that they weren't done looking for studios. And now we have information, a rumor from a very credible source, that Microsoft has their eyes on Obsidian Entertainment and that a letter of intent has been signed. So let's talk about all this stuff, shall we? What is going on, guys? Randall Thor 19, Man with the Million, back again with another video. Now, keep this as a rumor, take it with a grain of salt. It may be true, it may not be true. I'm just reporting on it because I got like 15 DMs on Twitter asking me, Rand, cover this, please cover this, which I do. If you guys have any ideas for videos or want me to cover something in a video, I will always kind of check it out. So make sure you DM me or, message me on Xbox Live. So the rumor comes from ResetEra. Yes, ResetEra, the new NeoGAF. And a person goes by the name Clobril, who has released very good information previously, which is why this kind of news has been going out to the bigger websites and taking it as, a possibility that it might exist. He's a very good source, and this is what he has to say. He goes on to say, Obsidian Entertainment letter of intent for an acquisition by Microsoft, dated before E3, no written sign of a Microsoft employee, only Obsidian. He goes on to say, I'm not as sure on this one as I was with Playground Games letter of intent. I got access to earlier this year. That's all I have right now. Hope that's transparent enough for you guys. I can't validate it any further. I'm sorry. So what he's saying is there is a letter of intent that he has seen that was dated before E3 and it was signed by an Obsidian employee, but nobody from Microsoft has signed it. So I'm not really sure 100% how letter of intents work. I don't know if this means Obsidian, and Microsoft were having discussions and they decided, you know what, we are serious about being bought out. Here's our letter of intent and our demands, or whatever would call it, then Microsoft would have to sign it and they would be bought. But we do know that Microsoft is trying to build up their first party stable for next generation. All the rumors and all the talk surrounding it is that Microsoft CEO, he's very giving them the green light to go ahead and try to do what it takes to win next gen, or at least sell more Xbox Ones. They got the streaming service coming, which they're going to try to reach more consumers. And one of the things, perhaps the biggest thing that Microsoft needs is a bigger first-party studio. And they completely addressed that as best as they could at this E3 by signing Ninja Theory, Compulsion Games, Undead Labs, actually purchasing Playground Games, who's building a second studio, and then building a brand new quadruple A studio, as they call it, from the ground up in Santa Monica to work on something in the future. So they have their eyes set on next generation, and they said they weren't done. And Obsidian kind of falls into that territory of what Matt Booty recently talked about, like a double A studio that has been doing, Kickstarter things, where their budget may not be as high and they have money issues. So Matt Booty was like, hey, maybe these are studios that we can focus on that have great leadership and make great games, and then we can bring them into the family, give them a bigger budget, let them hire some people and let them create. And Obsidian, they've been a pretty damn good developer. If you don't know the types of games they made, well, back during the original Xbox era, they made Star Wars Knights of the Republic 2, as well as Neverwinter Nights 2, which are both sequels to BioWare games. Their first original game was Alpha Protocol, which came out in 2010. It's a game that I actually played and quite enjoyed, although a lot of people did not. Of course, I think the game that most people love from Obsidian is Fallout New Vegas. People actually consider Fallout New Vegas a much better game than Fallout 3, and people have been wanting a Fallout New Vegas 2 from Obsidian for a long time. They want a Fallout New Vegas 2 on the Fallout 4 engine. That's how much people love Fallout New Vegas. So they did that. They did Dungeon Siege 3. They did South Park: The Stick of the Truth, and that was their last kind of AAA foray. South Park Stick of Truth, I adore, I love that game. After that, they had to go into Kickstarter, where they released Pillars of Eternity and Pillars of Eternity 2, which are highly regarded on Metacritic and has done pretty well for the studio. And the reason why they had to go the Kickstarter route, and why this whole acquisition by Microsoft rumor thing is kind of funny, is because Obsidian was working on a RPG for Microsoft for the launch of the Xbox One called Stormlands. There's a video on my channel, maybe last year, I think, when this information came out, and you can read more about it in Jason Schreier's Blood, Sweat, and Pixels book, where they put everything they had into Stormlands, and it was supposed to be like a huge RPG with like a 1,000,000-man raid, and it just was canceled by Microsoft. And because of what happened and how deep they were in the production of the game, that the game being canceled really kind of destroyed the confidence of the developers at Obsidian, and they had to really double down. They had to lay off a lot of people there, and then they had to go to the Kickstarter route. And fortunately for them, they were able to come out with 2 successes, Pillars of Eternity and Pillars of Eternity 2. And the thing here is, they've always been open to acquisition. There's an article here from Eurogamer and WCCF Tech saying Obsidian has opened acquisition if the right opportunity came up. Obsidian CEO Fergus explains why these deals are so complicated. He goes on to say, "We sign a contract and we must hit that number, and it's the end of the earth if we can't. We had to sign away royalties, we had to sign away ownership of IPs, whereas internal studios, it's just another month. They're already paying the people, it's already in the budget, these people are going to be paid." He reveals that Obsidian has had a lot of acquisition offers from various publishers, and it's not something the company is necessarily adverse to. He goes on to say, "It's not like we're indie for life, not like we bleed indie blood. We're an internal studio for Black Isle, for a publisher for a long time, and we were successful. We just didn't think the offers were commensurate to what we're worth and then what we would get to do." In fact, the co-owner Chris Parker added, "If the right opportunity came up, it's certainly something that we would do." And maybe the right opportunity came up. We all know Microsoft is looking to pick up studios to help them with their next generation push and help them reach 2 million gamers. They're a incredibly talented studio with a deep pedigree in RPGs, and that is something that Microsoft is kind of lacking. So if Microsoft does pick up Obsidian, I think it could essentially fill a hole. They can start making these deep RPGs that people want. And I've seen, a few of the Microsoft execs talk about how they would love to bring back Shadowrun. Well, this would be the perfect developer for Shadowrun. You can make Shadowrun, instead of making it a first-person shooter like they did during the 360 era, just make it an RPG, turn-based RPG. Give it to Obsidian, give them the budget they need to turn that into something special. And even I've seen other people say that Obsidian would be perfect for Fable 4, but unfortunately, of course, Fable 4 is all but confirmed to be being worked on right now by Playground Games. Either way, this would be a pretty big acquisition for Microsoft, as Obsidian is a pretty damn good developer. They're located in Irving, California, pretty close to all the other developers out there, where Microsoft could easily poach talent for the studio to build them up, as they're probably going to do with the Initiative. So it kind of fits in the area where they want to build their studios. Of course, part of me also thinks I'm not really sure that this one is going to happen. I would love for it to happen, as I've enjoyed quite a bit of their work. For instance, I enjoyed the South Park game. I actually enjoyed Alpha Protocol. I enjoyed Star Wars Knights of the Republic 2, but I didn't like it as much as the first one. I didn't care for Dungeon Siege 3, and I didn't play Fallout New Vegas, although I'm not the biggest Fallout fan. So, it would be a big get. Anytime you add a studio of these calibers, it would be a big get, and it would further signify that Microsoft is taking all this seriously. Of course, the drawback is that whatever game they'd be making would be far out, and that essentially everything's for next generation. Some people are like, hey, you gave up now, but of course, the fruits of all this stuff will be in 2, 3, 4 years, when Microsoft is trying to win next gen, beat out Sony, and try to get 2 billion to 4 billion gamers and just kind of dominate gaming in a way they, dominate the cloud right now with their Azure stuff. Other than that, I don't really have much to add to this story. I don't have any inside information whatsoever. I know my buddy Jess Corden has said that he has heard the acquisition stuff is still, they're still looking into it, but he hasn't heard anything specifically about Obsidian, which we'll talk about tomorrow on the podcast. So this is all just based off of Kloburl on ResetEra, who has a good track record, which is basically the only reason I'm even talking about this, because I believe the dude. He's genuine and he has good sources, which is why I think it's possible this happens, but at the same time, I could see it not. Obsidian would be a good pickup for Microsoft. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Would you be excited if Obsidian joined the Microsoft team, and what would you like to see them make? Let me know what you think about it in the comments below, and as always, if you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. If you are new to the channel, make sure you hit that sub button. If you want to be notified every time I drop new content, hit the notification bell. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I'll see everybody in the next video. Later, guys.